Hello, I'm Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for TheChessWorld.com. Welcome to a new course where this time we'll be talking about the knight to f3 followed by b3 system for white. And I'll start off by saying that this system is a flight to safety. If we want to get a good middle game, a solid middle game as white, what I also like about playing this system as white is that our opponents, they won't have a fixed line against this. They may know a setup, but they're not going to be super prepared against this mix of a Reti and a Larsen opening. And what's the most relevant thing is that what matters here is knowing the plans, knowing the ideas. You don't really need to memorize a lot of opening lines here as white. Instead, you'll have to do a lot of work, as we'll do in this course, to understand the plans. And if you do, then, as I said, you're guaranteed a good position out of the opening. And of course, we can try outplaying our opponents in the middle game or end game. So, for this intro, I chose a game. The game is Norwood against Polgar, Sofia Polgar. You'll find in the PGN files, of course. So without further ado, let's get started. We'll take a look at games because this line, it's all about understanding the ideas. We're not going to do as we do in other courses where we go line by line, move by move. There's no point in doing so here because again, we're looking at system where strategy is everything. So let's see what Black played in this game. Black goes knight to f6, we play bishop to b2, and here Black goes for the London system, which is bishop f5. So here we go, we've got a system from Black too. Black could play with c5 and knight c6. Black could try bishop g4, which same as the London system, Black wants to get the bishop out of the pawn chain before playing e6. Black could play e6 right away. So here Black will play the London system. So now after bishop f5, here's where we've got to make a decision as white as well. And we'll see some games where white sticks to e3. And when I say sticks to, it's because after e3 we are playing in a Queen's Gambit fashion. Let's say we go e3, d4, and c4. Or we can switch to a double fianchetto, and that is what white does in this game against the London system. So after g3, Black plays e6, and now an interesting move from white in d3. So let's try to understand what white's trying to do here. Why does white play d3? Well, for starters, we don't really want to play d4 because that would close our bishop's b2's diagonal. So d4 is not a move we are interested in. Now, one of the ideas for white here is to play in a King's Indians attack fashion with knight b2 and e4. Of course, before playing that, we'll have to prepare e4 further because he's got three pieces controlling that square, so it's not likely to happen anytime soon. But that being said, knight b2 and trying to go e4 later on is a plan. There's a deeper idea here for white, and that is going after black's bishop pair. d3, it looks like an innocent move. That being said, d3 has a lot of poison to it. So in order to understand why d3 is a great move, let's see what happens if we play, let's say, knight to h4. This is quite direct. Knight h4, it's not a blunder per se, but after bishop e4, then we have to go f3, and now we are creating weaknesses around kingside, so black can simply play bishop g6. So here, if we wanted to, yes, we can take the bishop pair. However, as we mentioned before, we've got weaknesses on the kingside. The fact that we played f3 is not helping us. And then can even try bishop d6, then sacrificing on h2. He's got a lot of targets, so we're not going to allow this unnecessary counterplay. Now, if we go d3, we control the e4 square, and now knight to h4 might be a threat, a positional threat, of course. So after d3, black in this game goes bishop to e7. Now, could play h6. In this game, we'll see that black didn't play h6 at all, but if he does, then our strategy will change, and we'll see that in the next chapter. Now, we'll see what happens if black just keeps on getting his pieces out. So after bishop e7, here white plays knight b2. We keep on getting our pieces out. Now, let's see what happens if we play knight to h4. Is knight h4 a good move here? Well, it's okay. Black is going to play bishop g4. Now, if we go h3, bishop h5, our idea is to go for something like this, because otherwise we're not going to get the bishop pair. Now, what black's doing here makes a lot of sense, because he's going to give the bishop pair away, but at least he's making sure we're creating weaknesses on the king side by pushing our pawns. So the line here would be bishop g6 or knight to d7. Sorry about the arrows. For some reason, I'm struggling to do them. So here, what we get is a position where black might be able to save his bishop on h5, and the resulting position is, I would say it's balanced. I don't think we're worse, but I don't think we're better either, because black is super solid. If we take on h5, he takes on h4, and now it is fair to say that black's better. I wouldn't even bother taking that pawn, because our king is in terrible shape. Rook g8, even bishop takes looks interesting. Oof. Okay, so black is likely to get the bishop back. If king g1, queen g3, if king e3, queen g3, if king f3, there's gonna be, yeah, queen takes. He's gonna get the bishop back for sure. So, as you can see, this is not a great start for white. So, I'm showing you these lines because we also have to know what we shouldn't get into. So, the idea for white is to play knight to h4, but I think before going for that, we need a better development. So here, the other thing about knight bd2 is that before going for that aggressive knight h4, h3, g4, we can wait till he castles kingside, because think about it, if we ever take on g6, then he's going to have an open file for the rook. Now, if he castles kingside, as black did in this game, then it'll be easier for us to execute the knight h4 idea. Now, needless to say, black can still play h6, and as I mentioned before, we'll take a look at that concept on the next chapter. For now, let's see what happens if black plays the standard London system by playing bishop f5, e6, bishop e7, and castling kingside. Okay, so here we go knight to h4. Now black goes bishop to g4. Again, black wants us to create some weaknesses on the kingside before he gives the bishop pair away, because bishop g6 we can simply take, and then he doesn't have a rook on the h file anymore. So here we can potentially try something like this, Or we can go slower and bishop g2 castles. We get a position with the bishop pair and simply a better position for white. Why? Because we've got two bishops, we've got an open position, and here on top of all that, we've got some chances of a kingside attack. I wouldn't underestimate this if I was black, because after all, h4 and h5 is dangerous. Of course, he's got a knight on f6 now, but who knows, maybe bishop e2, maybe e5, and then h4, h5. The ideas here are endless. And now black, he doesn't really know when I'll play h5. He has to sort of wait. And this is not a good idea, of course, to play like this. Now, the engine recommends e5, knight d7, f4. See, this is what I'm talking about. We're super flexible here as white. h5's coming. There's not much black can do to stop it. And since we've got the bishop pair, black cannot just react in the center. I mean, if he goes something like f6, bishop f1 is going to be even stronger. I think here queen g4 is crushing. So in the knight f3 b3 system, it's easy to trick our opponent into playing something he doesn't want to play. So I think here bishop g6 would be a passive version of what happened in the game. In the game, black goes bishop to g4. We go h3. So here we go after the bishop pair, and white goes g4. Now, there's a quieter approach, which is knight to g2, and the idea is to still go after black's bishop pair. Only difference here is that we haven't played g4. So if you're a positional player, go play something like this, then you'll get the bishop pair, guaranteed, and you'll get a position where your bishops are likely to be better. So here, for instance, we castle. Let's say he goes, I don't know, a6. Well, at some point we'll take. There's no rush though, because that bishop is not going anywhere. Cannot play h6 because we take, and then his pawn structure is terrible. Let's say I play rook here. Black has a tough call here because whatever he plays is going to weaken his position. For instance, if he goes e5, then it's not good for him because now he's going to be weaker on light squares. The fact he lost his bishop on g6 is helping us. Now we'll open that position and we'll fully dominate on light squares. This is already much, much better for white. So in a position like this, black would love to just come back with his pawn to e6. Unfortunately, for him, it's not possible. So again, if we get a position like this, whatever black does is likely to create weaknesses. d4, well, same concept. Now we can take the bishop, and we can even switch to closing that position up. Our bishop can improve via c1, and then kingside attack begins. Now the center is closed, so it's easier for us to attack on the kingside because black won't have a reaction in the center. So these are the positions we're looking at. This knight g2 approach, I love it. I mean, this is what I would probably play in a tournament game because g4, it's excellent for white too. That being said, if you want a slow game with zero risk, then knight g2, knight f4. You just get the bishop. Your pawn is on g3. You can even castle kingside. Now, if you go for the game's approach, which, by the way, will move forward with the game, when you play g4, you're getting a lot of kingside space, but then the game's nature changes. So let's see what happens here. After g4, black plays the right move, which is knight f d7. So the concept is black doesn't want to just play bishop g6 because that allows knight takes, and after pawn takes, you can just play e3. Now the idea is that we're not going to castle kingside. What we'll do is we'll push our kingside pawns, we'll do a pawn storm, and we'll make the most out of our bishop pair. So here, black, I would say black is in trouble because let's say he goes c5. Now h4 looks great. So does g5. I mean, g5 is probably even more aggressive because here I can just play h4 and then I don't really see how he's gonna stop bishop e2 and bishop takes h5. So after g5, let's say he goes knight to d7. Well, still, I don't really see how black is going to stop our kingside attack here. Our attack is just too much. So again, let's see. Let's refresh this a little bit. It's good to take a look at the move order just to refresh concepts. So here we go for a double fianchetto. We play d3. We're flexible. We know knight h4 is a potential move here. Knight b2, black castles. So now we go after his bishop pair. So black makes sure we create some weaknesses on the king side, but still, if he goes bishop g6 here, he's in trouble. As we just saw, we take on g6 and then we are ready to fire with our pawns. So here black does the right thing, which is play knight f d7, and now we still play knight g2. This is the concept we mentioned earlier. Taking on h5 was just too risky because then we end up with a pawn on h5 and black can simply take, can come back to f6, and I would say black is way too solid there. So here after knight g2, black goes bishop g6, of course, and here white goes for e3. So this is one of the reasons why I like this game. It's we get a lot of concepts to learn. Here, after e3, white is, I would say, not showing his cards yet. Why? Because black doesn't really know what our next move is going to be. It could be h4, it could be knight f4, it could be queen e2 and we castle queenside, it could be f4. I mean, we've got a lot of potential ideas here, and black has so many moves, it's not easy to choose. So what should black do here? Well, according to the engines, he has to go for a passive line, which is f6. Now, let's be honest, our opponents are not likely to play like this, and even if they do, they'll get a passive position. Of course, after f6, the idea is that he'll play bishop f7, he'll be super solid. Now, we could just keep on firing. So here, what I would probably do is, knight f4 is going to play bishop f7, so I can save knight f4 for the next move. So maybe c4, and then I can try playing like this. Now, still, the engine likes bishop f7. The engine, oops, sorry about the errors again. The engine understands that black's position requires a lot of precision, and I can tell the engine somehow knows that white is gonna attack on the king side. So that's the reason why black is taking all of these precautions by playing f6 and bishop f7. So there are some interesting lines here. Apparently now the idea for white would be to castle short. And if you're playing for a win, as white, this is perfect because you've got every single piece in. And I would say the assessment is equal. We've got, or balanced, let's call it balanced. Both sides, they've got good chances. Now, depending on how the game goes, we could play f4, or we could slow down a little bit and just bring more pieces into the king side. Maybe at some point we can play d4. So we've got a chaotic position, which, again, I think it's balanced. We've got every single piece on board, and the player that plays better chess is the player that's going to win. That's what I would say in practical terms. So this is technically the best line for black in this game. To go bishop here, and if we go g4, he has to play knight f d7. Now note the recommendation I mentioned earlier, it might be an improvement over the line we analyze in the game, because we'll get the bishop pair anyways, and because we've got a pawn on g3, we've got no weaknesses, and we still got all the pluses of white's position. So maybe, before I finish this knight g2 line, in the analysis I mentioned c5, he could try bishop d6 to stop knight f4. Now I wish we could play e3 anyways, so now we go g4, bishop here, e3, and now this is totally different, because now his bishop is no longer on e7. So again, I feel black has to be extremely careful here. So what else can I add here? Just want to make sure I mention all the concepts I come across, because we'll get them in most of the games we analyze. You'll get a5 a lot. Black wants to create counterplay. What I would do here against a5, here or in similar positions, is a3. I wouldn't go a4. It might be fine. a3 is even better because we control the a3 square. We stop him from playing a4 and a3. And if he goes a4, we can always play b4. In endgames, that pawn a4 is weak, and in some lines, if we get c4, we get to attack his pawn, we get a great queenside. So here, of course, the action is going on the other side of the board. That being said, a5 is a concept we have to watch out for. All right, so just to summarize, in this line, we go after the bishop pair. I believe knight g2 is a great approach for white. We go after his bishop pair. We don't weaken our king side a lot, but even if we do, it is fine. We have to just be aware of the fact that after knight f d7, knight g2, if he plays f6 here, then we've got a complex game ahead with chances for both sides and every single piece on board. So this didn't happen in the game. Black didn't play f6. Let's be fair and say that f6 is not an easy move at all. It is passive. It's not a move that our opponents, it's not the first move that comes to our opponent's mind. So let's think about other moves for black. What about bishop f6? This is way more natural than f6, trying to get some trades. Well, after bishop f6, I would say there are two approaches here. One is the thematic queen c1, and then we can just play slow. I mean, black, he might be happy playing an endgame. There are some issues for black here, though, because now bishop g6 is in trouble, and even if he goes h6, we'll be able to keep on firing, and his king side is kind of abandoned. He doesn't have a lot of pieces protecting there. I would say knight f6 and bishop g6 are targets at the moment. If he takes, then we play h5 and e4, and we still trap the bishop. So black cannot just relax and think that bishop g6 is safe, because it's not. Here, just to show you another sample line, if he goes h6, here bishop b2 and g5 looks attractive. There's knight f4 too. The engine likes g5 right away, and even endgames, as you can see that knight stuck. This is a dream for white. This is exactly what we're looking for when we play these lines. So I guess here after bishop f6, queen c1, black should play something else, of course, because taking and then going queen f6, it's just it is a thematic line, and in this case, it's just better for us. Probably black should play c5 and knight c6 and fight for the center, because then our queen on c1, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So here after bishop f6, what I would do is I would take, and after queen takes, I would go h4. So here we've got a position with queens on board. That being said, black still has all of the issues he had before, and if we want to trade queens off, we might do so later. So, what can black do here? I mean, we know f6 is the best move, but let's put f6 aside for a second. Bishop f6 doesn't seem to be enough. If black goes c5, then we can just play h4, and the show goes on here. Can even think about bringing our queen all the way to the king side. So I think it's a good idea to see what happened in the game after e3. So we get a picture of what practice looks like. Black being a strong player played e5 here, which is a natural move. It does stop knight f4, and here white goes queen to f3. Now, maybe, this is a maybe, I'm not sure about this, but maybe black should go e4. The engine says it's a clear advantage for white, because apparently compensation is not enough here. Bishop b4, we got c3. But my instinct as black tells me to just do something, because otherwise white is going to just squeeze black on the king side. Queen g3, h4, h5, castles, queenside, f4. I mean, that pawn storm looks really dangerous. So as black, I mean, my instinct would say, do something, sacrifice a pawn or do something just not to lose on the spot on the king side. So it's, I'd say it's easy for black to panic here a little bit. So in the game, black played c6, white goes h4, and here black goes h6. All of a sudden, we get a powerful attack for white. In the game, white played queen g3, and we can see we've got a lot of great ideas. Apparently, queen h3 is even stronger, because now h5 and g5 are big threats. I would say g5 is the move we should begin our attack with, because, of course, if he takes, we're going to deliver checkmate on the h file, and even if we didn't, we just get a powerful counterplay. Now, if he goes knight b4, it's funny that the engine recommends king d1, and nothing's going on there. We can kick the knight, playing a3, and then we continue with our kingside operation next. So after g5, black should play h5, and then both bishop e2 and f4 look, I would say, winning for white. I know it feels like I'm exaggerating a little bit, but to be fair, I don't see how black reacts here. f5 is a threat. If he takes, then knight takes. What is black going to do here? That bishop is in big trouble. So is the pawn on h5. I'm going to castle queenside. This looks just terrible for black. And we've got this funny line again. After knight b4, can just play king d1. Nothing's happening. It's not taking the pawn on a2. We'll play a3, and we'll continue with our kingside plan. And black is just toast here. So we see that this is a success, strategical success for white. And speaking about moving our king to d1, and it's a close position anyway, so we can afford to do something like that. In the game, we've got something like this too. Black played h6, which is mentioned that queen h3 is the best move for white. Let's see what happened in the game. Queen g3, black plays rook to e8, bishop e2. So white still prepares kingside, pawn sacrifice. And here black goes bishop b4. So it looks like bishop takes d2 is a threat, but is it actually? No, because if we get that powerful bishop, this dark squares bishop, then we'll be even better. I mean, long term, how is it going to deal with bishop b2? How is it going to deal with the imminent positions opening here, the kingside opening? What does he got in return? A check? Well, we've got bishop c3, we've got c3, maybe b4. In regards to our king's safety, the king is already safe there, but worst case scenario, we can castle by hand. So this is what happened in the game, and white got a crushing attack here. You can see the whole game. It is a model game, and the attack is slick. So yeah, please do check the game out. It's in the PGN files. That I think in this game we got the main concepts. When we play this line, we want to get the bishop pair. That's point number one. h3, g4 is likely to happen. Now, if we know that black's best line is this one, we can still go for this line. When I'm talking about black's best line, I'm talking about f6. But I think the chances, the odds of our opponents playing f6 here are pretty low. And even if they do, we just got a game. If they don't, then we know what's happening here. We get a powerful kingside attack. If you want to go for slow game with no risk, knight g2 is perfect. And then you may or may not play g4. So those are the concepts. Now, what we'll continue on the next chapter is we'll take a look at this London system where black plays an early h6, because after that, the whole strategy changes, because then he'll be able to play bishop to h7. So with this, I'll finish this intro. It was a long intro. I hope you found this useful. Hope you could learn something. And of course, I want to see you guys on the next one. Thank you.